Before the university entrance exams, the school's most admired girl mistakenly believed I had feelings for her. In front of everyone, she tore up my exam paper, mocking me. When it comes to relationships, it's important not only to consider the qualities of others, but also your own standing. I chose to remain silent. To my classmates, I was just a fool who couldn't even score above 200 points. However, they were unaware that I possessed a unique system that allowed me to trade exam scores for health benefits. My primary objective was to save my childhood sweetheart. On the day of the exam, her health finally began to improve, and I deactivated the system. Subsequently, I enrolled in Capital University as the top student, causing the once-mocked school beauty to panic. On the final day of mock exams, as the scores were released, everyone rushed into the hallway to check their results, while I stayed seated at my desk amidst the chaos. I lowered my gaze and pulled out a piece of draft paper to tackle the challenging problems our teacher had assigned the night before. Gradually, students who had been watching the rankings began to return to the classroom, their eyes filled with blatant ridicule directed at me. I could barely make out their whispers. Ethan is at the bottom again this time, with a total of just over 150 points across 6 subjects. He's really something. I could probably score higher just by stepping on his answer sheet a few times. Well, it's good. Seeing him so unfazed makes me more confident about the exam. Ignoring their taunts, I continued working on the chemistry questions. Eventually, seeing that I wasn't reacting, they lost interest and went back to their seats. Just as I was concentrating on my work, my desk mate suddenly stood up and pointed at my drawer. "Hey, what's this?" Before I could respond, he pulled out a light blue hairpin. I froze for a moment, reached out my hand, and for once, lost my temper. "Give it to me, that's mine," I demanded, but he didn't comply. Instead, he laughed and tossed it to someone else. The light blue hairpin was passed around among a few students, making me anxious and tempted to snatch it back. My reaction seemed to further amuse them. Typically, I was bullied because of my poor exam scores, but I'd always stayed silent in the face of their teasing. Seeing my strong reaction, their expressions turned gleeful. At that moment, my deskmate scratched his head and said, "Hey, didn't Mia lose a hairpin a while ago? It was also light blue. She was even looking for it on the school walls." "Ethan, you didn't steal her hairpin because you have a crush on her, did you?" The class fell silent for a moment before students began whispering among themselves. Mia was the school beauty and had always been the center of attention. Before the class bell rang, I managed to retrieve the hairpin. I didn't explain that it wasn't Mia's, but carefully cleaned it and placed it in my backpack compartment. Unexpectedly, before the first class in the afternoon, Mia approached our classroom door. Thinking she had something to discuss, I didn't pay much attention. In the next instant, Mia walked straight towards me. When she reached my desk, Mia looked down at me from above. I heard her say, "You like me." As soon as Mia entered the classroom, all the classmates' gazes fixed on us. Mia was not only beautiful, but also came from a wealthy family and consistently topped her class. On the other hand, I was notorious for being at the bottom, scoring no more than 200 on any exam. With someone like Mia, there seemed no chance for us to connect. Now, seeing Mia beside me, many looked over with malicious intent. I pressed my lips together and said nothing. Some things can't be explained. The more you explain, the more mistakes you make. So it's better to stay silent. The smile at the corner of Mia's mouth slowly faded as she flipped her hair and casually glanced at me. "Ethan, has anyone ever told you that in relationships, you shouldn't just consider others' conditions?" Mia's voice was soft, but carried a hint of obvious sarcasm. Soon, her gaze fell on the paper lying on my desk. It was a math test paper with a bright red 17 prominently displayed. Mia scoffed and lightly pulled the math paper from my hand. With a swift motion, she tore it up. The smile in Mia's eyes was still unfulfilled. She casually tossed the torn paper aside and continued, "You also need to assess your own standing, Ethan. This is my final warning. If you like me, you'd better not entertain any inappropriate thoughts." After a brief silence, the whole class burst into laughter. Despite Mia's sharp words, My expression remained calm. I met her gaze and spoke slowly. I don't like you, nor did I take your hairpin. Clearly, no one believed me, including Mia. Now, she glanced at me dismissively and left the classroom just seconds before the teacher arrived. I bent down to pick up the torn test paper. After smoothing it out, I stuffed it into my folder. In response to Mia's provocation, I had no further reaction. With the college entrance exam approaching, I didn't want to waste time on things that didn't concern me. After evening self-study, I continued studying at my desk as usual. Others didn't understand why I worked so hard, even though I could only score 200. When the clock struck 11 at night, I finally started packing my bag. Instead of going home, I headed to the hospital near the city center. Standing at the hospital entrance, I took a deep breath and activated the system in my mind. It finally responded leisurely. "Host, what can I do for you?" I rubbed my temples and directly asked how many points I needed to completely cure Mia's illness. The system seemed to be calculating something. After a while, it told me I was getting close. "Just keep scoring low, and you'll be able to cure Mia before the college entrance exam." It encouraged me a few times, easing the tension in my nerves. As long as Mia could be cured, that was good. Mia was my childhood sweetheart. Her grades were excellent, but after an accident, she became comatose. Mia's parents had consulted numerous doctors, but were left without solutions for her condition. Since childhood, I had no friends. Mia was the only one who had helped me when others bullied me. To me, she was different from everyone else. On my birthday, a system called Scores for Health approached me, informing me that as long as I deliberately scored low, it could convert the excess points into health value to help Mia recover. I was skeptical at first, but after a few trial low scores, I saw Mia begin to improve. Since then, I had kept my scores below 200. It sounded magical, but it was true. I tightened my grip on the hairpin and entered Mia's hospital room. She lay there quietly with her eyes closed. I placed the hairpin beside her bed. It was the birthday gift I had prepared for Mia. As I quietly watched her, the system reminded me, "Host, you need to work hard to cure Mia before the college entrance exam." I understood what the system meant. It had agreed that on the day of the exam, regardless of whether Mia had recovered, it would unbind from me. This was our countdown. I brushed Mia's hair and softly spoke, "I will." The system was right. I really needed to put in more effort. The next day happened to be the English pre-exam test. The teachers graded the papers quickly. During evening self-study, the class monitor suddenly asked me to go to the head teacher's office. I sighed. What was bound to happen eventually did. This time, I only answered one reading comprehension question on the exam, leaving everything else blank. Sure enough, as soon as I entered the office, the homeroom teacher slammed my English exam paper down in front of me. "Ethan, I don't even want to scold you. You're like mud that can't be molded. With the college entrance exam coming up, you should at least finish the exam paper." I looked frustrated. "I remember you did pretty well in the freshman entrance exam. How did you end up like this?" I kept my head down, quietly listening to her lecture. Before long, the teacher seemed at a loss for words and waved her hand as if to let me go. Just then, Isabella entered the office with a stack of homework. She was bright and charming, and although she wasn't in our class, our homeroom teacher liked her quite a bit. Isabella just happened to catch the phrase "did pretty well in the entrance exam," and her eyes curled into a laugh as if she had heard a good joke. The entrance exam was ages ago. It just goes to show that a person's abilities can change. "Don't you agree, Ethan?" Seeing her mocking gaze, I said nothing and simply left the office. As I brushed past Isabella, I caught a glimpse of the English exam paper in her hands. She scored 130. That was no easy feat. It was indeed a high score. Noticing my attention on her paper, Isabella straightened up, seemingly proud. The system couldn't hold back any longer and suddenly chimed in, "Is it worth it? To save Mia, I have messed up my high school life, being mocked and belittled and always facing setbacks." Listening to the system, my gaze fell outside the window. After a while, I spoke softly. "Let's just save her." I couldn't give up the chance for Mia to live. That would be too cruel for her. Anyway, I was still studying hard. On the day of the college entrance exam, the system would unbind from me, and I needed to make the most of my time. I couldn't waste any opportunity to bring Mia back to life. In the following mock exams, my scores kept dropping. Isabella and many others laughed at me. She even made a point of coming to our class to collect my exam papers, scoffing at the blank answers. How can you not answer such simple questions? I really don't know how you're still in school. But it's okay. You won't be for long. Facing Isabella's ridicule, the others thought it was just her humor. I didn't refute her words. On one hand, my scores were getting lower, while my error notebook was becoming thinner. In truth, these questions weren't difficult for me. In fact, I found them quite simple, but explaining this to Isabella was pointless. In her eyes, I was just her worst suitor, but I didn't like her at all. I had two wishes. One was to get into the physics department at University A, and the other was to make Mia better. I had once been extorted by street thugs, and it was Mia who took my hand, pulled me out of the predicament, and put a bandage on my wound, telling me it would stop hurting soon. She had always treated me well. Seeing the health value from the system rise higher, I knew Mia was almost fully recovered. On the day of the college entrance exam, the system indeed unbound from me as promised. Unlike regular exams, the college entrance exam held great significance for me. For 2 whole days, I took the exam seriously. After finishing, I immediately went to the hospital to find Mia. I wanted to know if Mia had fully recovered or if she had any after effects. I didn't know how to find a second system to help her. With a heart full of anxiety, I arrived at the city hospital. Before reaching Mia's room, I mentally prepared myself and finally pushed the door open. But at that moment, I heard a sharp voice. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" It was Isabella. She was accompanied by a few friends holding a bag of medicine. Isabella's voice was slightly nasally, as if she had a cold. She looked me up and down and raised an eyebrow. "What, finally planning to come to the hospital to treat your mental illness?" Upon hearing Isabella's words, her friends burst into laughter. I frowned. There were still quite a few people in the hospital corridor, and they were casting ambiguous glances at us. I lifted my head to look at her. "Wanna make a bet?" Isabella seemed unsure of what I meant, crossing her arms and looking coldly at me. I continued. "My college entrance exam score will definitely be higher than yours." At my words, Isabella paused for a moment. After a beat, she burst into sharp laughter. "Ethan, I think you're really mentally ill." Isabella laughed heartily. Her attitude was as I expected, but I just stared at her. "Want to make a bet?" Isabella laughed even more. "Sure, if I lose, I'll apologize to you. But if you lose, you'll have to crawl around at the class reunion. How about that?" Our class reunion was set for after the exam results came out. Isabella was being intentional. She just wanted to see me make a fool of myself. Before I could respond, I felt someone hug my arm. A crisp voice chimed in. "Hey, do you really think Ethan is easy to bully? Why do you get to apologize? But Ethan has to crawl around." "No way. If you lose the bet, you have to do that too." My breath caught. That voice, I would never forget. I turned in surprise and saw Mia standing next to me. She had truly recovered. Mia was looking at Isabella with piercing eyes. "I hope you've thought this through." Perhaps because she had been in the hospital for a long time, she looked much thinner but still full of spirit. Mia stared fiercely at Isabella. Isabella, taken aback, had never been spoken to like that before. Her expression turned ugly, but she still coldly nodded and then arrogantly proposed a new condition. "If I don't score higher than you, Mia will have to kneel and apologize to you." I opened my mouth to stop Isabella from putting Mia in a tough spot, but Mia nodded directly. Isabella glared at us for a few seconds, then turned and left. The corridor suddenly fell silent. I looked excitedly at Mia, momentarily at a loss for words. Unfortunately, Mia had missed this year's college entrance exam, but she was very smart. I knew she had always wanted to get into the physics department at University A. Seeing me silent, Mia chuckled, standing on tiptoe to pinch my face, saying I had lost so much weight, though she was the one who had lost a lot. Mia seemed to think I had endured some great injustice. Even after 2 years of being comatose, the trust and understanding between us remained. Mia didn't even know who Isabella was, nor did she know about my past with Isabella. Yet she stood up for me without hesitation. She wasn't afraid of my score being lower than Isabella's. Mia seemed to see through my thoughts, winking at me. It's okay if your score isn't higher than hers. I'll just pretend we never made a bet. There are no witnesses. Can she really make me kneel and apologize? I laughed. The accumulated frustration of the past 2 years seemed to wash away a bit. In the following period, Mia would need some rehabilitation. I stayed at the hospital with her every day. On the night the college entrance exam results were announced, as I was leaving the hospital, I ran into the triumphant Isabella. She said she thought I would back out, so she wanted to watch me check my scores. I had no objections. As soon as it struck midnight, Isabella eagerly checked my score. She refreshed the page several times. As I was nodding off with fatigue, Isabella suddenly tossed my phone aside. Her expression shifted from amused to skeptical. Ethan, you didn't actually skip the exam, did you? I glanced down at my phone and saw a few zeros. Isabella couldn't possibly not know that the top 50 scores in the province would be hidden. She just didn't believe I could actually score higher than her. She never believed I could surpass her. Deal's a deal. Before Isabella could finish her sentence, my phone rang. Irritated, she hung up the call. But the phone continued to ring persistently. In her annoyance, Isabella finally answered the call. After a brief greeting, she fell silent because she had put it on speaker. The voice on the other end was from the admissions office of University A. Hello, this is the admissions office of University A. May I ask if you have any intention of coming to our school? Isabella looked completely unconvinced. I took the phone and provided my exam number and name. They excitedly asked where I was and said they could come to find me soon. Throughout my entire conversation, Isabella just stood there, dumbfounded. She furrowed her brow, seemingly still not believing what was happening. When the admissions staff from University A finally arrived, Isabella's expression completely changed. She looked incredulous that I could be the one the admissions staff was eager to meet. Isabella's gaze toward me grew complicated. When the staff from University A arrived, it seemed like Isabella wanted to leave. I wanted to ask about the physics department, so I didn't stop her. But at that moment, I saw Mia. She had just come out of the hospital and grabbed Isabella's arm. Mia's tone was somewhat playful. Don't you remember what you bet? Need me to help jog your memory? Isabella opened her mouth but couldn't say anything. She bit her lip and eventually turned to me to apologize. Mia yawned. How come I remember the bet differently? Isabella angrily shook off Mia's grip, but Mia wouldn't let go. In the end, Isabella apologized to me with a choked voice. I was busy with my application matters, so I didn't pay any more attention to Isabella. Besides, I couldn't be bothered to argue with her, but Isabella escalated her antics. A few days later, when I arrived at the hospital, a nurse I knew rushed over, looking anxious, and told me that Isabella had pushed Mia down the stairs. Upon hearing this, I dashed upstairs. Why was Isabella bothering Mia again? As soon as I reached the 4th floor, I saw several nurses gathered around Mia. Mia's face was pale with pain, and her forehead was covered in sweat. The staircase was long. I couldn't bear to imagine how much it hurt when Mia fell. Isabella, however, showed no remorse and stood at the top of the stairs. In her hand, she clutched a light blue hairpin. I recognized it. It was the hairpin I had given to Mia and the one Isabella had been accused of stealing. Seeing me approach, Isabella immediately pointed at me and yelled, "You took my hairpin and now you give it to someone else." To this day, Isabella still believed this was her hairpin. I wasn't that kind of person. That hairpin was a gift for Mia. After she became comatose, many people forgot her birthday, but I remembered. To me, Mia had never been expendable. I looked at Isabella, speaking each word clearly. Apologize to Mia. I had seen Isabella lose her composure many times, but this time, Her expression was one of complete bloodlessness. Isabella lifted her chin, showing no intention of apologizing. She stubbornly insisted that the hairpin was hers. I suddenly felt exhausted. There was no reasoning with Isabella. I should have known that from the start. Due to the push, Mia had sustained a slight fracture in her leg. I demanded an apology, but Isabella remained silent. At an impasse, I chose to call the police. In Isabella's shocked gaze, I summoned the hospital security. In the past, I hadn't clearly communicated my principles, which had allowed Isabella to bully me time and again. The police arrived quickly. Isabella still wanted to defend herself, but I found it pointless. With the police's help, I retrieved the payment receipt for the hairpin I had bought years ago. It was a limited edition, so it wasn't hard to find. Isabella seemed unable to believe that I had never taken her hairpin, and this proved that I had never had any feelings for Isabella at all, no matter how others saw her. To me, she was just a troublemaker. Ever since Isabella thought I liked her, she had done a series of foolish things, and it was time to put an end to it. I demanded that Isabella never come near Mia or me again. Isabella didn't seem willing to agree, but with the police present, she eventually complied. She also paid for all of Mia's medical expenses. After Isabella left, I went to Mia's hospital room. She had just recovered and was back in bed again. I whispered an apology. I initially thought Mia wouldn't hear me, but I heard her soft reply, "Idiot. The person who needs to apologize the least is you." Not long after the summer vacation began, I received my admission notice from the physics department at Capital University. As the top student in the province, many classmates dismissed it as a coincidence of names. They didn't believe I could really get into Capital University. When they saw my name on the honor roll of our school and that I had even received several interviews, they finally panicked. Those who had bullied me before even started apologizing, claiming they didn't know any better. To their apologies, I remained indifferent. You were almost adults back then. You should have known what was right and wrong. Faced with my words, they fell silent. I knew that some of them genuinely felt their actions were wrong, but more of them just didn't expect my capabilities to be like this. I wouldn't accept their hypocritical apologies. Not a single one. Many came to apologize, except for Isabella. She might have felt ashamed, or perhaps it was out of pride. In any case, she didn't bother me throughout the entire summer vacation. In fact, quite a few classmates began to speak up for me. They felt that Isabella's behavior back then was bullying. I believed my relationship with Isabella should end here, from the very beginning. It was she who suppressed and denied me. Isabella's malice towards me was blatant and direct, impossible to ignore. Mia also started studying high school courses, and as I expected, she learned quickly, preparing for next year's college entrance examination. On the day I reported to Capital University, Mia had something to do and couldn't come to see me off. As I arrived at the entrance of Capital University, I unexpectedly saw someone. Isabella. Seeing her made my eyelids twitch. Didn't we agree that there would be no further entanglements between us? What is Isabella doing here? Perhaps she wasn't here to find me. I carried my luggage, planning to walk past her, but amidst the crowd, Isabella spotted me immediately. Her expression suddenly brightened with surprise. As I passed by her, she reached out and grabbed the corner of my shirt. I knew that Isabella's university wasn't here. Her presence in this action could only mean one thing. Isabella had specifically come to find me. I waited for her to speak. I wanted to know what she was up to. Seeing that I didn't respond, Isabella began to cry. Her next words caught me off guard. Through her tears, Isabella told me that she had actually liked me for a long time. In fact, the incident with Mia back then was closely related to her. Hearing this, I suddenly lowered my head to look at Isabella. My voice began to tremble. "What did you say?" I had always thought that Isabella and I had no connection, but I didn't expect that our paths had crossed as early as the first year of high school. From Isabella's account, I finally understood that she had noticed me since the first year of high school. She was used to being the best. During the entrance exam, She believed she would take first place, but she was mistaken. That time, I scored first. Isabella unilaterally recognized me and began to study hard. Her goal was to defeat me once. However, gradually, her ambition was no longer satisfied with just that. Slowly, she vaguely learned about Mia. Isabella didn't know what it meant to like someone, but she felt unhappy seeing me with Mia. It made her unwilling to accept that I had someone by my side. She attributed this feeling to a desire to win. In any case, since her family was well off, Isabella found a few delinquents to intimidate Mia. But Isabella didn't expect that Mia, blocked in an alley, wouldn't watch where she was going and ended up getting hit by a car when she ran out, suffering brain damage and becoming comatose. Of course, what she had done with those delinquents went undiscovered. Later, to save Mia, my grades plummeted, and Isabella finally got her wish of always being first. After I denied having feelings for her, Isabella got angry. She couldn't accept that I treated her like a stranger. She was the one who ruined my stable life, yet she claimed to like me. Just thinking about what she did to Mia ignited my anger. So when Isabella visited Mia in the hospital, she knew who she was. That realization made me furious. After confessing everything, Isabella seemed like she wanted to say more. But I shook off her hand. There was no longer any point in talking with Isabella. You know you wasted 2 years of Mia's life. Right, I spoke slowly. If Mia hadn't been indirectly harmed by her, she would probably already be in university like me. Not to mention, if I hadn't encountered that system where scores could be exchanged for health, Mia would still most likely be comatose. Isabella's eyes turned red. But Ethan, it's true that I like you. I'm sure I like you more than Mia does. Hearing this, I silently glanced at Isabella, feeling it was absurd. This was her idea of love, to constantly suppress me for her own selfish desires. Was that her version of liking me? I looked into Isabella's eyes. Isabella, I'll say this one last time. There will be no relationship between us. If I ever find you around Mia and me again, I won't forgive you. Moreover, you've done such things to Mia. Isabella confessed her actions as an attempt to prove that this was her way of loving me. This kind of love was suffocating. Isabella seemed unable to believe that I would just walk away from her and leave her behind. I was no longer the person she could bully. I would protect Mia. Isabella cried hysterically. Having led a charmed life, she probably didn't understand why I didn't like her. I didn't think her bullying and suppression constituted love. Nor did I think I should like someone who constantly belittled me. Besides, Isabella's affection was diluted. She didn't like the past me. She just wanted to win against me. Isabella never understood what love really was. At the entrance of Capital University, amidst the bustling crowd, Isabella was there, crying with her makeup running. But no one would comfort her anymore. More and more high school classmates believed that Isabella had bullied me back then, and they no longer stood by her side. Meanwhile, I had chosen a major I loved and was embarking on a bright future. In that future, Isabella would never be a part of it. After meeting Isabella, I felt an inexplicable heaviness in my heart. Mia always protected me, but today I realized she could be afraid too. What was Mia thinking when she was chased by those delinquents and got into that accident? I didn't know. I only knew that my life, along with hers, had indeed been partially destroyed by Isabella. After tidying up my dorm, I suddenly received a call from Mia. The voice on the other end was somewhat noisy. I could only hear her breathing. After a moment, she spoke. Ethan. I looked down, feeling as if I sensed something. I rushed to the balcony. Mia was standing at the base of the dormitory, smiling and waving at me. She was here. Mia's leg hadn't fully healed. Her ankle was still in a cast, and she was using crutches. But Mia had come to see me. Seeing her, I suddenly remembered Isabella's words. Isabella claimed she liked me more than Mia did. I thought she was mistaken. All along, the one who bravely and persistently loved me was Mia. At least in the future, I would ensure that Mia wouldn't face the misfortunes of the past. She wouldn't be pushed down a flight of stairs again. She wouldn't have to live in fear. Over the phone, I smiled. I'm coming down. After saying this, I went downstairs. Today, all the painful memories related to Isabella left my life. I had Mia now. Thank goodness. I had Mia. Asterisk, asterisk, epilogue. Mia's perspective, asterisk, asterisk. Now, Ethan probably wouldn't know that after the accident, I gained the ability to read minds. This could be considered a blessing in disguise. Even when I was in a comatose state, I could hear the thoughts of those around me, especially Ethan's. I knew he had bound himself to a system. As long as he intentionally scored low, I would slowly recover. I knew everything. Even though binding the system didn't bring him any tangible benefits, he still chose to do so. He must care about me. I hadn't initially known that Isabella was the one who indirectly harmed me until I read her thoughts. She not only bullied Ethan, but also me. Now I wouldn't let her bully Ethan or me any longer. I hated Isabella, but I didn't want to waste my life hating her. I wanted to live well, especially alongside Ethan. There are so many things in this world more important than hating her. On the day Ethan started at Capital University, I went there. His dormitory was on the 4th floor. Before long, Ethan ran downstairs. I heard his heartbeat and his thoughts. I really like Mia. I pressed my lips together to stifle a smile. Yeah, I like him a lot too. Later, I also got into Capital University and became Ethan's junior. On the first day of school, I insisted that Ethan help me carry my luggage. It was a hot day, and I bought a newspaper to fan myself. This lowbrow paper served no purpose other than to provide a breeze. But as I was about to throw it away, I noticed some information tucked inside. The Sioux Group was undergoing bankruptcy proceedings. I paused, glanced at the information, and suddenly realized this was Isabella's family. All the things she had once taken pride in seemed to have vanished with time. Whether it was her background or everything she once boasted about, she didn't understand what love was. Nor did she understand respect. What fate had bestowed upon her was now being reclaimed by fate. I tossed the newspaper into the trash. Ethan was busy deciding what to treat me to. I linked my arm through his. Just take me to eat what you like, senior. He ruffled my hair. It's boyfriend. Hearing Ethan's voice, I smiled. A few days ago, we officially established our relationship. The misfortunes of the past would now be far behind us. No more accidents or systems from the past. The system and mind reading seemed more like gifts from heaven for us to grow closer. In the future, I would continue to love Ethan.